Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of the Human Role. So today we have not one, but two powerhouses in the payroll space. We have Brian Escobar and we have Walter Duncan. I'm really excited to have them here today. Both of them are co-hosts of the podcast. It's about payroll. So they dive into bringing real talk, real stories, real expertise. So they'll give us their background in a little bit to a topic that I like to say is often really misunderstood. But on top of being co-hosts of an amazing podcast, both Brian and Walt really have spent years in the trenches, in the payroll space, making sure people get paid accurately and on time. They'll give you some more insight into bits to that. But they're here today to help us really get through the typical question that all payroll people, I would say, get asked often is, all you do is click a button, right? So I guess if we had $1 for every time that happened, we'd probably be rich right now. But I'm really excited just to have them, here with me today to really kind of get into what really happens behind the scenes on payroll, just because it's a lot more than what people think. But before we get into that, I'd love for Brian and Walt to kind of get into their background and experience and really introduce themselves to my network. I know there are people in my network that we have already crossed relationships with, but for the people who may not, be familiar with the two of you, I'd love for you just to kind of take some time and introduce yourself and explain how you got here today in the lovely world of payroll.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tiana, for that.
All right. Awesome. Age before beauty, Brian. Go ahead.
Oh, got him. Oh, man. So, gosh, I've been in payroll now over 20 years. I do have more of that classic story where I fell into it by accident. I was helping my brother write some checks to contractors, 1099, over 20 years ago. And then at one point, and that was through college. And at one point I was like, all right, I got to graduate college and I want to get a corporate job and work in Manhattan in the city. Like, what's going to happen? And, I learned the hard way that a management degree doesn't just magically open doors. You have to really find something and figure it out. And I had payroll on my resume, and a recruiter called me up and was like, oh, we got this entry level, payroll coordinator position. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Interviewed well, got the job, and kind of the rest is history, right? Like folks say, I really learned how to do it well out the gate. I had a really great controller that helped me understand the controls and the audits, and we were I think, what is it? The SOX compliance was governed, our company was governed by that. So we learned a lot of the auditing, the necessities and requirements, and oh gosh, and then just went on to stay in the field until now. And when Walt and I started a few years back, we were working together and we came up with an idea to develop what folks are coining as payroll management solution right now. It's not a processing software, but it's something to help payroll folks keep organized. Once we started developing that, we were like, oh man, we should do this podcast thing, right? Like, they always say, we had an idea about it years before that. And then when we got into the space, we realized that there was not a lot of content creators. And this was only 3 years ago. And we were like, oh my gosh, we got mad, like, oh, there's no content. And then we were like, oh my God, there's no content. Yeah. And we just shot out the gate starting to do the podcast. And then the podcast became the thing. And we saw that folks loved it and other folks started joining us in the space. And here we are.
Glad you're here, because here we are.
Thank you. Likewise.
Yes. Well, what about you?
So my story is a little bit different. Most people say they fell into payroll or, just kind of stumbled into it somehow. Somebody was on PTO and they had to step into the role. So for me, I went to the military right after high school and didn't sleep that well the night before when I was going to take the ASVAB. And so I took it and my score dictated which jobs I could qualify for in the military. One of the two I qualified for was either in dental and the other was a disbursement clerk or payroll clerk. And so I was like, I don't want to be all up in people's mouths. So
yeah,
I'm going to go with payroll. And so that's what I chose. And that was in 2001. I was 19-year-old kid when I joined and learned how to do payroll in the midst of different trainings and situations that were going on around that time. And like Brian said, the rest was history. Then it came back after my 4 years of active duty. jumped right into PEO, which was a totally different world than payroll in the military. Payroll, the software in the military was almost like this is DOS type of programming, and then to come out and then come into the real world and have these new softwares at your fingertips was totally different, and had to learn. Kind of was just thrown into the wolves, and just had to learn from there. And been in about 20 years and plus in payroll, and I love it.
Yes, glad you guys are here. I mean, I have very similar paths where I just kind of needed a job, got thrown into payroll. I did take an assessment test that said I was good with numbers, which was a shock.
Ooh.
And then yeah, like I always hated math, but yeah, but this is a different type of flow of things. So yeah, so you guys, we definitely are going to plug It's About Payroll here too. Definitely check them out. I also, they were nice enough to bring me on a few weeks ago, and they also have really great guests with really amazing insight. So please follow them, reach out to them if you have any questions or inquiries. But we are going to get into literally the nitty gritty. Let's clear the air. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to start off hot on off the top. But okay, payroll, all you do is click the button, right? You're just clicking the button, right? Okay, so let's clear this whole myth. Is payroll really just a click of a button every pay week? I'm interested in both of your insights, but whoever wants to start first, because I have a lot to say.
Yeah, no doubt. It's funny because one of our guests put us on to this, to Reddit, and Reddit has that as like a header, a topic, a subject. Payroll is just pushing a button. And gosh, like if anybody wants to research that, go look at that thread in Reddit. It's hilarious. But no, it is not. Oh gosh, I had another one. I had a CFO at one point. It said we were processing every week, and I said, best practice is really bi-weekly. And he was like, well, what are you going to do on the off weeks? And it was like, what? We were like, oh my God. Yeah, yes. Oh, he quickly learned that it was much more than pushing the button, and as folks do, and like Tiana, you did payroll before. Like folks don't understand, and I get it, right? And it's no shade to anyone. It's an ignorance thing. It's not an understanding thing. It's way more than that. And in between those button pushes, it's a lot of preparation, data analytics, system configuration, IT troubleshooting, research, learning about the different laws. And if you're in multi-states, you have to learn about every single state you're in addition to federal government's law. You have to weigh out which one is more beneficial to the employee, because if they're contradictory, it's whatever is more beneficial to the employee, right? So it's just all these things that you have to constantly weigh out. And I love the posts on LinkedIn that say, payroll folks wear a lot of hats. We wear the legal hat, and we wear the analytical hat, and we a little bit of HR, a little bit of accounting, a little bit of operations, a little bit of everything, really, because we just had Max van der Vlies Boosink on from the Netherlands on the show. Really amazing. Like if anybody's interested in payroll in your audience, please go look him up. He's a great energy, brings something amazing to the space. But he was telling us like all these things that go into it and what you have to know. You won't ever get bored, right? You won't get bored being in payroll. And my point was, was like, he said, you need to have a good business acumen to be a good payroll person. And I was like, you're spot on there, because the more you understand about your company as a payroll pro, the more you'll have to kind of contribute to that process and make sure that all these different things you're doing every single day have a positive impact on the payroll.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, you covered pretty much everything there is, right? Like it's really complex, right? So to answer your question directly, is it really just about clicking a button? No, it's not. It's far from it. When I was getting ready for this to come on, I was thinking about like movies and stuff like that, right? And then you have the thrillers, you have the rom-coms, the action, all those different movies that whatever you were into, right? And that's kind of like payroll. Payroll, there's some thrilling moments. There's some moments where it's crunch time and you got to make sure you get everything done in time before you hit that finalization or commit button, right? And you have to do the research. Like you have those thriller moments where you have to find out the source.
No doubt.
If you're
It's
into
true.
it, like and it brings that passion out. I think being in payroll is so unique, and there's so many different opportunities for you to excel in, and there's multiple arenas you can be in payroll, from construction to sports to different avenues that payroll and HR and those type of things will land you in. So for me, it's exciting and complex.
When you say complex, I think of like the compliance aspect and what Brian was also describing, from federal to state to locals that people don't even realize we have to keep up with. And then the partnerships with every department. I mean, we could have a whole nother episode down the line on, should payroll report to HR or accounting, right? It's like, it's literally just, we still have to partner with every single person. And then the employees who are coming to you with their pay, even if it's time off, and that's technically under, the benefits department, depending on what company you're working for, they will still come to you for the accruals. So there's tons of just like back end setup that has to be spot checked. So I would say people really miss out on the fact that there is a huge compliance component. But Walt, I loved your thriller explanation.
Me too.
It really is just something where every single day, like you think you have your day planned out, but something's going to happen. Someone's going to turn in time card late. Someone's not going to pay attention to the deadline that you emailed out 5,000 times. They're going to be mad. It's funny. It's just one of those things where we are often overlooked, but unfortunately, we don't really get a light shined on us unless something bad happens, right? Payroll doesn't go on a Friday or some sort. Other than that, it is definitely much more than a click of a button. And it's so hard to describe. I tell people, just sit in the seat for like a day, half a day.
Oh my gosh, they won't make it.
I know they won't make it. You'll just have like no clue about it. But okay, great responses. I definitely thoroughly agree. So our next steps really want to get into, on top of like the complexities and compliance, really all of the system integration. So we talked about how we have to connect with not only accounting, from a GL stance, but also like HR to make sure new hires and everything are coming through properly. But system integrations and like data quality from recruiting, that flows into the system, they're really important to make sure that that's like a success, right? Because if it's a failure, it's really bad. So how have you seen in your industry and career, how that affects payroll in a positive, but also a very negative way?
So if done properly and correctly, these integrations and configurations could greatly increase efficiency. There's a saying that you put bad data in, you get bad data out. Another way to put that is garbage in, garbage out, right? So it could make everything so much more painless for not just the payroll pros, but for the organization, right? Going back to those compliance issues and stuff like that, to making sure that the company is compliant when it comes to taxes, when it comes to the employee classifications. Because one of the biggest errors, or one of the biggest error when it comes to payroll, is employee misclassifications. So it can drive everything. So if you have a bad integration with a onboarding system and it puts bad data in, it's going to misclass. Not only are the people going to get possibly overpaid, underpaid, whatever it is, there might be some compliance issue that the company may face because of that, right? So the data directly impacts the employee trust. Inaccurate data, job codes, deductions, all that can be impacted from that. So, I think we have to make sure that what Brian says, and kind of something that I've stolen from here recently, is like trust but verify. It's okay to trust the systems that we use, but put a little pressure on them, test them to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because they could have missed an update. And I've seen it happen before in my career where software wasn't updated and there were some tax penalties that resulted for a company because the payroll software was not updated accurately. What about you, Brian?
Oh gosh, it makes me think of Anita Latank and her book. If folks aren't familiar with it, it's how to select your next payroll system. And I quote it all the time because she says that payroll starts as soon as an HR change is made in the employee profile. And it makes me think of one of the stats that Walt brought to the show was like the average company uses like 6 HCMs. And I'm like, wait, what? But only got, and so to broader define HCM is like any system that holds employee information. You could possibly have a tech stack of a time and attendance system that is not not native to your payroll, not native to your HCM, your human capital management system. You could have a 401k system that's different. You could have a benefit system that's different, and all of them in different spaces and portals, and they all have to talk. And, POS system, you could even argue could be right if you have input in that. These are all human capital management systems that have different purposes that all need to talk and all need to integrate. And that's why, like, we're going through RFP right now. So a lot of them are leading with, oh, we're one system and everything is together and there's no integrations and la la la. So that's why that's a selling point, because they know it's messy or more complex to have to manage these different systems. And like Walt said, garbage in, garbage out. And payroll usually is at the bottom, toward the end of that assembly line. Like I say on the show all the time, we do not create the data. We are processing already approved data. So if there's are issues in the paycheck, it's most likely upstream. That's where we, have to kind of check. And of course, you got to check yourself too and make sure that you're pulling it in right. If you miss something, then clearly something's wrong. And then employees don't care, right? They call in the payroll department because they look at a paycheck, right? And they're like, something's wrong. I'm calling payroll. And it could have nothing to do with us. But this is one of the things where payroll pros needs to stretch and be good customer service folks and help and, bridge that gap, because they don't know. They're scared. They're angry. They miss their money. And it's all because of an integration that went south on the upstream. And maybe you didn't even catch it for one person. It may not have been a big thing across the board. So our audits, we can only go so far. Like, the bigger your company, you're not checking every person's check against every control that exists. You're doing broad stroke analytics and kind of spot checking, and you build a variance. Like, right, me and Walt used to build like under 10% variance when we worked together. If it was under 10%, it was like and then if it was over 10%, and it's like, whoa, wait, we need to red flag it. So it really depends on what your tolerances are for all that and catching it. But it's key because it impacts the employee experience. That at the end of the day is it, right? If another stat that Walt brought to the show is 2 errors and an employee's looking for the door. They're looking at the next job. They're looking for their next job, because you break that trust. You break that confidence, that warm and fuzzy feeling that my check is going to hit direct deposit, right? Or all my money is going to be there on Friday. And I get it. Like, and if it's not, we often have to deal with that. And it's, again, it's because it could be because of a system integration or data quality. Another term that I coined was data hygiene, and, making sure your data is good. Because if not, it's gonna be bad. And like, a lot of times I go into a report for one thing and I see another, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta report this, and now I have to audit that, because where one error exists, now you have to see if it exists throughout the whole population. What other person has this deficiency or a data point that's bad? How does it impact your payroll run? I mean, it is all about data, right? It's all about data for us. And if it's not good, it breaks the confidence, it breaks the trust that employees have for your company.
Absolutely. So I love the trust for verify, because that's like so true, right? So many people just heavily rely on their HCM platforms. And I tell like a lot of my clients on the consulting space, look, you're using these systems. It's like, okay, it is technically your responsibility. Like, I need them to understand when you're calling in to, one of your account managers, they have 100 other clients, so they may know the system, but sometimes your own internal company better, because there's so many ways to get to, 2 + 2 = 4, but 3 + 1 also does, right? Like, there's so many ways to
I
get
love
to
that. Yep.
aspect of that, and people don't necessarily realize that. So you do have to take some responsibility there. And then you all also made some good points on just like, I love the data hygiene. I'm going to steal that as well.
Yep.
I usually say garbage in, garbage out, but the data hygiene is very true, because even when you're launching that role, like if your ATS is all connected, when you're even posting for the role, if that's the wrong title, if the wrong compensation, the wrong department, all that flows incorrectly into payroll, and the person may get hired 30, 45 days later, right? But it's like, it still affects when the employee first logs in and what their experience with that is up until their pay. So it's really critical just to make sure that we're not turning employees off. And we
Yeah.
really, from a payroll stance, it's very hard to point the finger, when it's not us and someone calls us and say, oh no, it was actually this person in this department. That's unprofessional to really say,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you just kind of got to take it, but
Yep.
we know it's not necessarily from our, so.
And you say something very, very important, the job title, right? People might think, well, it's just the job title. I actually have automations that assign certain policies based on the job title. So if the job title is wrong, I don't know until downstream because it's already been auto assigned. They may have been paid a few times already, and then we discover it later on. So you're absolutely right, Tiana. Like, it starts at that job post, even, right? Like, is it right? Is the job title right? Is their classification right? All those little things that I build logic off of. I build those automations off of those little data points that some may not think are impactful, but they are.
Yeah, absolutely. All good things. So let's now get into the two letters that are just making the world by storm. How AI is evolving payroll and automation, and also real-time pay. Because I realized about 2 weeks ago, even though it's small business on my consulting side, I can actually, for a Friday payday, now process payroll like late Thursday afternoon. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to test it. I was so to do payroll by Tuesday or Wednesday. But apparently that is a thing. So I'm like, well, the people can pull their funds early with all the different, companies coming out with real-time pay, immediate pay. So I just want to get your insight, how AI is really evolving, how tech is really taking, payroll by, storm, and what you guys have seen on your end with that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen a lot of true AI in payroll yet. A lot of, especially I've seen a bunch of demos in the last few months, and the only way that they're impacting it so far is just kind of helping as a search tool and maybe answering questions and things like that. What I have learned about is real-time pay or earned wage access. That is a lot more important to employees than I thought. And I learned that through a failed integration through our companies, and the integration went down, and employees were very vocal. Now, mind you, only 25% of my workforce uses it, but they use it religiously, and they were very vocal about it. I mean, they every single day until it got fixed, and unfortunately, it went on for like a week or two, and it really impacted. Like my business partner, my HR business partner, was worried that folks were going to start leaving because she knows it's a recruiting tool. Some folks came here because of it, or wouldn't have come if we didn't have it. And that was important to folks, and more so than I realized. And it took this failed integration for me to realize, oh, wow, this folks really love this thing and it's important to them. And I get it, right? You could get access to your money daily, every other day if you need, whenever you need it. You get caught in a jam, you get to pull the funds. So that is something I had learned recently for the real-time pay. But again, we're continuing to look for AI in payroll. I think we're a ways off. Anita Latink also posted something recently about, be careful because AI is still hallucinating and it doesn't always give you great feedback. And we've seen that firsthand using AI to help write things about payroll and create teaching or even doing compliance. I use ChatGPT to look up minimum wage recently and to, different final pay rules. But I always trust but verify. So I always go double check it against the government websites, because what I do is I'll ask ChatGPT to give me the website and the code and the law behind it as they report it to me, so that I can go and look it up as well and make sure that it's not hallucinating. Walt, any different experiences with AI?
No, it's kind of the same. I'm in the same vein as you when it comes to your response. I'm really excited for things that are yet to come. Some of the people that we've been interviewing are saying there are things down the pipeline that are going to be revolutionary. And I think that AI, the hope is, Brian and I on this one episode, we basically said, what do we wish or
Yes,
want AI to do?
yep, that was great.
Right.
Yep.
And so we just kind of went through and rattled off all the different things we would like AI to do. Brian even said that he wanted to be able to speak like voice commands
hmm
and tell it to do something and it would actually do it. Right.
hmm
And I think that would be something sophisticated. And hopefully we get to that point one day. But, AI can help identify, those different anomalies, do some of the grunt work that we have to do, some of the audits and stuff like that, and just do that automatically for
Yes.
us and take that. And so the payroll pro or HR pro can focus on other things and other tasks. So it can lighten the load. I think that's what AI is going to
Yeah.
do. And automation is something that we've had in place for a while now, right?
Yeah.
I think some people are coining their
Confused.
automation
Yeah.
as AI, and it's
hmm
not technically not really that, right?
Yep.
And so automation is important for helping mitigate against those manual calculations and garnishments. When it comes to garnishments, retro pays, adjustments, those different things. So I think that's where automation comes into play. And Brian spoke on real time pay. I will, jump on piggyback on that where he says this is important for people. And I didn't realize that until we just implemented a new payroll software. And when we rolled that service out, there were gradually we saw more and more people accessing those funds on demand because look, we are living in different times now.
Tough
So
times.
tough
Yeah.
times. And so people need their funds a
Yeah.
lot sooner. So real time pay is essential.
Yeah, so I loved all the points. So first, Brian, kudos to you to say like, hey, AI is going to tell you something, asking AI where it got the information from, right? So I recently started doing that over the last few weeks of like, okay, can you tell me where this is coming from so you can make sure it's really valid? So
hmm
truth be told, that trust but verify is very true. And then leaning into what Walt said is like, look, let it handle these mundane tasks. And then if you tack on with what Brian suggested as far as telling it to confirm so that you can just double check quickly, then that saves you minutes, potentially hours, right? From having to go back in,
Heck
Google
yeah.
on your own, trying to figure out where the site is, whatever it takes you straight to the site, then you can confirm it and then keep moving. And what Walt was also saying is like, look, let's be more strategic, right? So we need like our roles at this point. Typing in, manual timesheets and stuff is just not a thing. I mean, maybe in some small organizations, but if you're still doing that, you're really behind, right? So you really got to try to stay on top of that and just make sure we ourselves are not getting behind and that we're able to expand on our own experience. But then earned wage access, I was on a pilot with a company. I mean, this is well over like 5 years ago when it was kind of getting heavy. And I was actually shocked at how many people, especially from like an executive level, were utilizing it. And so, if anyone hasn't explored that within their company, listen to what Brian Walt and what I'm also suggesting is that this is really important for people now too. Sometimes waiting for 2 full weeks to get your check is just not ideal in this stage. I
hmm
all understand that, right? Layoffs are going around like crazy. People are having such a hard time finding jobs. Like we're all getting to a point to where we're really just trying to do the best that we can. So if that one little option, is there for people, I know I've heard some payroll managers say, well, I don't want to like have them lose all their money or take it in advance or put them in more of a hole, but you can put parameters around that, right? Like
Yes.
you can put
Yes.
parameters around that just to make sure that that doesn't happen. But it's also their money and what they're working
Yeah.
for. So let's not
Right.
make a decision for them.
That's right.
Yep.
And that when I did a demo a while back, Daily Pay, and kudos to them for nailing that name.
Yeah.
But when I did the demo for them a long time ago, that was my first question. I'm like, what about finances for folks? And they said that what they saw based on the data is that was actually improving the financial wellness of folks because they were able to stay on top of bills and stay on top of eating on time, having money to go to work, and travel, things like that. And just it actually increase their wellness as far as finances are concerned. That's what we see. I haven't heard any horror stories otherwise. So there's a good impact on it.
All righty. So let's get into some advice for anyone who might be new in the world of payroll, might be thinking about it. I know lots of people are even thinking about making job changes as they evaluate what's on the next, horizon for their role.
Mhm.
So any advice you would give someone thinking about stepping into payroll?
Tiana, it's really crazy. I remember when you sent the questions when I circled back today, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is here. So shameless plug here. We're actually going to be dropping a book on this subject very soon because we're aging out of payroll, right? So we need to get folks excited and teach people what payroll and what the possibilities are for the career. It's a career, right? And folks don't know that. But to answer the question, I think that if you're considering getting into it, if you're considering changing careers, you got to be curious, detail oriented, and embrace technology. Don't be afraid of AI. I say it on the show all the time. We have to be the ushers. We have to bring this in and become the folks that are comfortable with it at our companies and helping them do it to the extent that it's there. Because again, I'm not aware of any big softwares that are doing it. Maybe they're doing it in the background in the secret and they're going to come out and surprise, but it's not there yet. But when it starts coming in, we can't be afraid of it. Folks, I know folks are like, oh no, no AI, and it's not going to take our job. Yeah, it is. It's going to impact payroll, and I don't think it's going to take our job, but I think we'll become payroll pilots in the future, and we need to embrace it. Walt, what do you think?
So for me, if I was giving some advice to someone who was considering payroll as a career, I would let them know that they can find success and fulfillment in payroll, that it can be something that they can use their drive to excel and to find career success. They can use their creativity. We're finding out now later on in our careers that our creativity is something that is can enhance our careers. It can enhance the way we process. It can enhance the way we look at things. If a person has an analytical way of thinking, it can enhance the way they process payroll, and they can question and be inquisitive about different things and go in, and it's almost like solving a puzzle, right? When it comes to payroll, sometimes depending on how complex it can be, saying not even on a global platform, but even in the United States, things can be so complex in certain places with local taxes and different things. There's so many different levels and so many different nuances that you can tap into if you want to get into payroll. And I think that it can be something that's going to be, payroll is going to be something that's going to be here for a long time.
Yeah, I was gonna say payroll is a career. Like that's just one of the things. I think there's so many people that know nothing about this space that really just write people off, right? They're doing payroll and it's like, okay, like try not getting your check and see how fun that is. Or having a messed up W-2 and see how fun that is. Like this is actually a job where you make sure your numbers and your taxes are correct. So so yes, there's many people that recognize that, but there is a lot of people out there that don't. So listen to what they're saying, you guys. It is a career, take it serious. And build your own path. So last little kind of thing I wanted to pick you all's brain out. I wanted to ask for you all to finish a sentence, right, when it comes to payroll. So payroll is the heartbeat of a company because, and I know we know like you're paying, but just curious how.
No, it's a tough question though. Walt, you want to start it off?
Payroll touches everyone from the employee to the company without fail, right? If payroll stops, potentially the business can stop, right? Yeah, if you don't pay, like you were just saying, Tiana, if you don't pay people, you might have some revolting going on in your company with these people not showing up. In our career, how many times, Brian, have we, even you, Tiana, how many times have you heard of a situation where an employee has not gotten paid correctly or just didn't get paid at all, and they're like, I'm not going to work today because I didn't get paid, because it stops everything for them. In payroll, you can definitely feel valued, but more so often you can be overlooked. And if your payroll pros are overlooked, that can impact how they work. And if that impacts how they work, that can impact the company. So what about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think of a guest we had on, Adrian Resto. He said payroll is life. And he led with that. He's all over LinkedIn. And when he first came on, I was like, all right. I mean, I think it's a little too much here, but what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, Brian, through my hands, I process payroll and all these thousands of people. But where he got me was, he said, well, people get paid. They go pay their mortgage. They go get food. They go live their lives. They can't do these things without getting paid. And he's like, I help in that process. Payroll is life. And I was like, I get it. I get it now. And I think some payroll pros go a little too far with how important they think they are to business. Like business doesn't happen without me type of thing. Companies are gonna find a way to go. If there's a lot, there's temp, like, let's not get too crazy here, but we are a very important cog in the whole scheme of things. And to Walt's point, yeah, I mean, I've definitely had people call me and say, I'm not going to work because, one, I don't have money to get there. I didn't get paid. And until I get it, I'm not going back, and all they know is they didn't get paid. Like, that it was like, wait a minute. Now, kind of going back to the other question, like, what do you tell somebody else? Now is that's where that Sherlock Holmes, I call it, kicks in, is you got to find out what happened here, right? And that's the fun part for me. I hate it on check date because I hate that the person didn't get paid, but that's why it's the heartbeat of the company, because it's keeping your people moving, right? And I'm sure there's some good medical analogy that we could use, that what keeps that blood, or our heart, keeps it pumping through our bodies. And, like, yep, that's why it's the heart, because it keeps everybody working. We don't work for free. Even in nonprofits, it does not mean you do not get paid. You do not have a salary. So that's why it's the heartbeat, because it keeps everybody motivated to keep contributing to the organization. And yeah, you definitely got to take care of your payroll folks. Like, if they don't have the tools they need, then there's something's gonna go amiss, and you're gonna be upset on payday, like you said, Tiana. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answers. I would say, look, yeah, we are not working for free. And
Mhm.
sometimes people don't know if that means, like, oh, are they being fired, or is the company not doing good? Sometimes
That's right.
was just something random that, was a quick fix, but it still unfortunately takes time to get to their account. So yeah, so employees don't know. And ultimately it's on us. It's not necessarily on them to really, really know. But I want to stress how important payroll is. So Brian and Walt, everybody, thanks so much for spending
Thank you
time.
so much for having us. It's such
Yeah.
an
Thank you.
honor to have us on. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. We
Yeah, it was a
appreciate it.
pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, no, really excited. So I think so definitely you guys, you'll see the link to It's About Payroll here for you all to go and check out. Also, we got connected because we are a part of the Work Defined community. So
That's
be sure
right. Shout out to
to
Work Defined. Yeah.
yeah, see all of the great connections that Tin Cup and Ryan are doing over there. Lots of amazing other podcasts
Great
going
shows.
on
Yep.
in the HR space. So please give some time in your day to finish listening in here, checking out It's About Payroll, but also looking over the Work Defined community. And I have a feeling we will be back in time to
Absolutely.
talk about another topic, because yeah, this is a
Absolutely.
Yeah.
great conversation, you guys.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's an honor.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much. Honor. Yes. Thank you, Tiana, very much.
Okay, to everyone, look, I will be back in another few weeks for another great episode. But thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.